What's going on, guys? I'm Pragyan here, and today we are gonna talk about a rather simple and a common topic, but it might get confusing. And we are talking definitely about computer graphics, and these particularly come in two different flavors, and those are particularly your raster graphics and your vector graphics. So, what are they? What is the main difference? We are definitely going to talk about this thing throughout this video. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Well, this video would definitely differentiate between the vector graphics and the raster graphics, and we will be particularly talking about 7 points like its overview, its file resolution, and many more things in this video. So, if I talk about the overview or the number 1, and overview it is just meant about a small bookish definition about those things. So a raster graphic is a normal graphic, and by normal I mean really normal, which you are just seeing throughout the day, like on your phone, on your computer screens, on your mobile screens, and something which you are seeing just right now. And a raster graphic is particularly made up of pixels, and we all know what a pixel is: just a small dot or just a small component of your image which makes up your image definitely, and it particularly contains a small piece of information of your color. And in raster graphics, pixels are the smallest unit, and they really help a lot in making a nice image definitely. And a raster graphic has really a lot of things to do, which is definitely less flexible, because whenever you would be zooming a raster graphic in Photoshop or any other software, or might be GIMP, there is a lot of distortion and definitely some and the picture starts to get pixelated. And because this is all based on pixels, and raster graphics are even called bitmap images, and a special file extension is even, I think, BTP or BTM. So these are particularly your raster images, as they are based on pixels. But whereas if you just go and talk about the vector graphics, they are just a whole new world. Particularly, they are made up of paths, and they are generally made up by arithmetic and geometric calculations, and they are not based upon pixels, they are rather based up on paths. And now you would just ask what a path is. It is just a smooth line, that's it. It is not based upon any pixel, and this is really very flexible. Like, you could just increase its size without just losing its quality, and it is really very flexible. That's it. Because if you are just trying to make a 500 by 500 size particular document, then you could very easily make it a 1000 by 1000 pixel document without loss of any quality. So that's definitely a big bonus. And this is all just because there are certain mathematical calculations. Because as in raster images, you would generally find that whenever you are enlarging the images, the point is, whenever you enlarge them, those pixels which are particularly there would give you a lot of problem. Because pixelation is just not only of losing of quality, but it is just like there are more and more colors added to your picture which were not there when it was of smaller size, or when it was downscaled or downsampled. Well, downsampled, it is just a term of resampling. We can talk about it anytime. So it is really important to know what a vector graphic is, and you can't use a vector graphic and just as a substitute of raster graphics. We would definitely understand in this video what are its uses, and definitely some other things. Number 2, resolution. So if you just basically understood the concept of raster graphics and vector graphics, then you should just know this much, or in a nutshell, we can definitely say that a raster graphic is just a graphic which loses its quality on upsampling or just scaling it up in any software, whereas a vector graphic won't lose any of its quality when upscaled. And if you talk about the resolution in vector graphics, it is generally something out of the world, and in raster graphics, we all know, like, if I have a simple 500 by 500 pixels document, and then I just try to press shift and just try to make that 500 by 500 document into a 1000 by 1000 document, it's definitely going to lose a lot of quality and you would see pixelation. Nice word, definitely. You would see pixelation because of a nice process called image interpolation. Now what happens is that colors generally start to mix up as they want to fill in the gaps between them. Now there are a lot of things, we could talk about some math in it, like all those transformation matrices, but we are particularly not in a computer engineering course or anything. So as for a basic, the resolution really counts upon your image if you are talking about raster graphics, whereas in a vector image it really doesn't matter much till the time you export it in a raster form. That means if you have a 500 by 500 vector graphic content, then you can simply upscale or upsample it with any of the software, but definitely some particular softwares like Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW, and they are really handy because they are really very flexible and they won't lose any quality. So resolution particularly does not count much in terms of vector graphics, but in terms of raster images a lot. So while you are working on any image, you should definitely try to get a high quality image, because even if you talk about the conversion, only high quality raster graphics can be converted into vector graphics, because definitely who would even like to lose quality for any purpose. So number 3 is scaling, and well, this is almost the point of resolution, but let's include it. And scaling is quite simple, that whenever you are gonna scale a raster image, it would lose some of the quality. If it is by a very less factor, let us say you just want let's say a 1.5 times zoom, it won't matter much, because I don't think your eyes are like a microscope which would sense every pixel. So sometimes it works, but sometimes if you are just trying to do it a lot, let's say a 500 by 500 image into 2000 by 2000, definitely you are gonna see some bad results. So just be ready for that. Whereas in a vector graphic, when you would scale it down, no quality goes down, because it is, as soon as you give the command to your computer to just scale it up, what happens is the computer gets another command and it just particularly scales that up, because it is just a path, not a pixel. So while you are just particularly scaling things up, it isn't like it was having a limited number of resources earlier. The point is, you could say that vector graphics have a lot of resources, and that is why something even comes into the file size, which we would be talking very soon. So number 4, as I said, file size. Now what is, it's just a nice question, that what happens to just your file size? It's quite a thing which you won't expect, something counterintuitive, but it is. Particularly a raster graphic file generally has more file size if compared to a vector file. Now really just mind-blowing, but why does it even happen? The point is, when you are resizing or doing anything with raster graphics, there are a lot of mathematical calculations going all around your particular canvas, which you call in a photo editing software like Photoshop. Really, I'm a big fan of that. And if you talk about vector graphics, really it doesn't change it. Like if you have a 500 by 500, again that size, 500 by 500 size image, what would happen if you would just take it to 1000 by 1000? Let us say that the file size of 500 times 500 image was 1 MB or 1 megabyte. So if you go to 1000 by 1000 1000 by 1000 pixel size, the file size would increase proportionally. Like if it was 1 MB, then it could go to 2 MB, 3 MB or whatever. So they are just directly proportional. But whereas if you talk about a vector graphic, the file size would remain the same, because for the computer to process it, it is just a path. And very easily when you scale it up, it's quite easy. They would just give it another command and say, okay, you were that small, but you can go that big without any loss of quality. Definitely, so that's quite clear that file size does not matter in vector graphics, because the computer gets another command and a very little amount of time and some arithmetic and geometric calculations give you your desired result without loss of any quality And well, I could repeat it many times, but that's definitely it. Well, so now definitely we are going to talk about its uses. Now you would just say, let's replace raster graphics. I really don't need them. Raster graphics are just rubbish. I'd better to go with vector graphics, no loss of quality, nothing. But the point is, it can't happen. Really, it can't happen right now. Or it would take a lot of money, and it would definitely produce a lot of garbage. Because raster graphics are particularly used almost everywhere, except for some designing purposes like logo designing and all. Like raster graphics are used to create posters, movies, films, that is it, banners, and really many things, but not logos. And they are used widely even on your computer screens. Whereas a logo or an envelope or a visiting card would be made up by a vector graphic, because they are really handy while you are, just you have some printing sort of stuff. Like you definitely have to print visiting cards. You definitely, well, not always, but you might like to enlarge your logo while video editing, or might be some printing purposes for your banners. So it's definitely nice to get a vector graphics going if you really want to make some banners. Or what, I just said that banners are not the best one to get vector graphics, but you could use them because Photoshop even use vector graphics now. I know this is all blowing your head, but believe me. And what I meant that you could get a vector graphic that you could fit it in your raster image too. Definitely you can, but it would, you just have to increase its size and all those stuff. I hope so that you get the idea. You could use raster graphics, but after conversion, the vector graphics only after conversion. And that's it. Just make sure that you are using those vector graphics, particularly doing some design work, some creative work, or some of those cartoon drawing or character designing. Raster graphics are not the best because many times you have to enlarge it and you don't want some pixelation to be happening around with your creation. So it's finally time to make some of the raster and vector images or those graphics. How could we do that? Quite simple. There are particular softwares which you could use. For example, if you talk about the raster graphics, you could definitely use Photoshop, GIMP, GIMP, and even that nice software which I used, that is Affinity Photo. Well, the video was taken down, and even paint.net. These are some nice softwares which you could definitely use to create your own raster graphics. On the other hand, if you are planning to make some vector graphics, then you could go definitely for Adobe Illustrator and definitely CorelDRAW, which is even popular right now, but not as much as Adobe Illustrator. And I really use Illustrator and Photoshop a lot. So these would be some handy softwares which you could use. Now the number 7 and the last is file extension. Now what is a file extension? It is just, you could say, it's the same person in different masks. Now a file extension, we would cover that later, but you know definitely the basic idea, different file formats of the same thing. And if you talk about the raster images, there are tons of formats which are used right now. One of them is PNG, JPEG. JPEG is, I think, Joint Photographic Experts Group. Quite awkward. Okay, PNG, JPG, TIFF, and many others. Definitely these are widely used right now, and you should definitely try them. Even GIF, MP4 are even raster graphics. On the other hand, if you're talking about the vector graphics, some of the popular ones are .ai, the Illustrator files, or the Adobe Illustrator files, the CorelDRAW files, which are generally not widely used right now, .eps files, .svg files, and .pdf, portable document format. Those are some popular file formats which are used right now, and definitely your PDF is a vector graphic, because just get any software, Adobe Acrobat or might be Reader, which is pre-installed on your Windows, or get any other software for your Mac, and just try zooming in it. It won't really lose any quality while you are zooming in within a PDF, because it is definitely a vector graphic. And if you would try that, you would definitely understand the difference between vector graphic and raster graphic. Well, so as a conclusion, we could definitely conclude that vector graphics are definitely useful, but not completely, because all the displays which are used in our phones, computers, TVs are raster graphics based displays. So using vector files without converting them into raster would not be such a great thing, as even logos and various other things, when are used in digital platforms, they have to be converted into raster images by using PNG, JPG, or whatever you want to use. But it's really important to know the difference, and in a nutshell, vector graphics are those things which are made up of paths, particularly of arithmetic and geometric calculations, and they won't lose any quality till the time you have not converted it into a raster graphic. And a vector graphic generally draws smooth lines whenever you are making any sort of artwork, so be wise to use them. Don't just use them every time, because sometimes you would definitely see a loss of quality. How? You should definitely not try this at your home. And talking about raster graphics, they are right now all around the world, no problem in using them, but be sure not to neglect any vector graphic, because they would help you in designing. Don't design logos every time on Photoshop, because I definitely think you are not hoping or not just trying to lose any sort of quality before even things just get rolling. So definitely use both raster and vector graphics simultaneously, and don't neglect anything. Those are really nice if you are in graphic design or any other field. So well, that was almost it, guys. I hope so you liked the video. If you liked it, then be sure to smash down the like button down below, and even subscribe to my channel, because I definitely like technology and I would share more tech related videos with you. So I will meet very soon with my next video. Till the time, bye bye.